Yo, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be helping you guys build siege defenses, all right? So I got this little info chart. It's basically, we're going to go over it. So on your right, you kind of got like the basic compositions of defenses that you can build. You've got your speed damage comp, a bruiser comp, a control, a speed control comp, and then you've got like an element of surprise comp that you can build, all right? They should be self-explanatory. Speed damage, you've got whatever, speed leader, and then 2 damage dealers following up with it. Possibly one of them being an attack bar booster. Your bruisers, they're built to be able to withstand hits, to not get illusioned, for example. Usually in upwards of 30,000 HP. The bruiser defense is there to be able to take a hit and dwindle down the opponent little by little. Then you've got a full control that basically the point is to control the enemy and not let them take turns. And then there's also a speed control. Turn 1, you control them right from the get-go and you don't let them move, or you kill them before they move. And then you've got like the element of surprise, and that basically, guys, can be anything, all right? And we'll cover some examples of that. Now, on the left, you basically have do's and don'ts of what to do with your defenses. You see the little green next to them, that means it's a go, and obviously the red means no. And then the yellow, you see it matches with the element of surprise, right? So that's kind of go into that. But first and foremost, guys, if your guild asks you to build a certain defense, build it, all right? They obviously want to use it. If you have it, if you can build it, please build it. For example, I recently asked my guild to build a Kamun Miho Orion, and now we're using it in a full base. It's working very well. Now, very, very important, guys. This is the biggest do not do. For your defenses, do not put 3 of the same element in that defense. That is what mono element means. For example, do not put 3 wind units there ever, period. Don't do it. It's so easy to counter. It can be 2-man. It could possibly even be soloed by the right monster. So just don't do it. If you have them, change them now. Like right now, pause the video and go change it, all right? A big do. You want element diversity. What does that mean? Is that you ideally want just 3 different elements on all of your defenses, right? That's gonna improve your win rates quite a bit, and it doesn't have to be wind, water, fire. You can throw in a light or a dark in there, obviously, but you don't. You wanna diversify the elements that are on defense. Also, guys, a lot of people run 2 supports and 1 damage dealer. That does not work very well, because all you need is something that can tank that damage dealer, and it's a very easy defense to beat. Well, now 2 damage, 1 support, that changes things, right? Your 2 damage dealers, now they would need to bring 2 different type of tanks, and then the support's either going to be providing some defense breaks, some attack buffs, or some healing, or possibly even control or variation of all of that, while your 2 damage dealers pump out that damage, right? Now, 3 damage dealers is definitely a very good defense. It just depends. We're going to talk about how to make a defense like that. But with the 3 damage dealers, you are going to want something in there that's got like a little bit of sustain, something that does damage and sustains, or does damage and controls as well. And then number 7, 3 supports. Now this one I don't recommend very much. The only way to do that and to pull it off is if it's got some kind of element of surprise. For example, and I'll give you a quick example. I had a friend of mine that used to run John, Chandra, Molly. Now the kicker is the element of surprise was they were all 100% resistance, so you couldn't really do much to them. They were all well over 35,000 HP, and then they were all violent and destroy. So it was just really hard because of the passive from the Molly to be able to do, you would miss the crits that you expected, so it was hard to get them down. but they were so tanky between the healing from the two passives and the hugs and the stuns from the Chandra and the John, and then they were just all on violent destroy, that they would dwindle you down, so that the element of surprise defense can work. But be careful with these, because obviously if somebody loses to it, they're gonna tell their guild. So you're not gonna be able to keep throwing it out again and again, because they're gonna catch on, they're gonna communicate. So what I suggest, if you do build something like that, you can maybe put it on the red side to begin the siege, and then move it over to the yellow side. That way you catch both guilds with that element of surprise. I will give you another example of something that's an element of surprise kind of defense, and that is when Susano Orion Garo was the meta 4-star tower defense. One time I ran into a full shield will, very, very, very slow. I'm talking like 150 speed or less defense, because the way you countered that was with your own shield will. So what happened was, then my own shield will team was faster than theirs, and they were on shield will, so I couldn't do anything, and they beat me turn 2. Again, element of surprise. That's just an example. So something like that is the only way that 3x support would work, but I don't really recommend it very much. All right, now let's move over to some tips and tricks on how to actually build your defense. All right, so tip number 1 to build your defense is definitely your leader skill. Make sure you are taking full advantage of that leader skill. For example, if you are using John, she's got a 41% resist leader skill. Make sure whoever you pair her with has 59 resist and subs, so that you can make them all 100% resist. That alone might win you an extra fight or two. You never know, but definitely take full advantage. Also, if you're using an HP, Molong on your defense, take advantage of his leader skill. That's an amazing leader skill for Molong. Definitely you want to use some high HP monsters, right? Self-explanatory. If you're using a speed lead, your monsters better be fast, right? Take full advantage of those leader skills, all right? That's something that some people just don't do very often. For example, if you're going to run a Lyca on defense, you probably don't want to use his leader skill, because it's only basically going to be for him, right? It's only going to be fire defense. So you don't want that. You want something universal or a guild war leader skill, right? So speed tuning, all right? Let's take a look at that. First of all, if you are using an attack bar booster, make sure that you use the optimizer, you check the speeds to make sure that when your attack bar booster moves, so do the other two, that they do not get cut. There's a great tool on the optimizer to check that. Second, make sure you have the correct turn order, all right? You don't want, obviously, your Miho moving before Orion, but another tip I'll give you for that one is, ideally, you want your Kamoon to move first, because your Kamoon, he will be tanked by a certain element, right? But whatever he hits, then ideally your Miho is going to follow up on whatever he hit, as opposed to if the Miho moves first, the Kamoon may not hit whatever the Miho hit, right? Just an example there. Another one, and hopefully it's self-explanatory. If you are running a stripper, for example, in a John defense, you never want the John to move before your stripper, right? You always want to make sure the stripper moves first. So turn order. Another very, very important thing that's going to help get you wins on defense with speed tuning is you have to bridge the gap between the speeds on them. The closest you can make them, the better. So for example, let's just say that you're running three units, but one of them is 250 speed and the other two are 150. Well, that means that you're going to have one unit move, and then the opponent is going to move in between. So if you were to just have them all at basically 1 to 2 speeds apart, it's going to help for them to move in succession. So bridging that gap, I don't care if you have to slow them down to get them closer to speed, it's going to help get you more wins if your units move 1 after the other in sequence. So make sure that you make that change. You definitely don't want a big gap between your units. Tip number 3 goes back to the mono elements. You always, guys, I can't stress it enough, try to have 3 different elements, period. All right, so that segues into tip number 4. Always use a fire monster. Why is that? It's because of Lucian, basically. If somebody, people in general, they're lazy. They're like, oh, you could just Lucian it. Well, if they're just gonna Lucian you, if they feel like they can Lucian you, they're going to. But I guarantee you, as soon as they see that one fire monster, they're going to think twice. It's going to make them think a little more. Possibly they're going to make a mistake, because anything that can be Lucian, it's an easy win. One thing I will say about that now, with this new update, your guildies can now actually test your defenses. So if your Lucian is trash, if you don't have a good Lucian and you can't test your own defense, ask one of your guildies, hey, listen, you know, can you try to Lucian my defense really quick? Let me know if you're able to. And if they are, change it. But for sure, try to include one fire monster. Now, I'm going to talk about violent runes really quick. It's not that the defense gets more procs. It's just that when we lose, it's usually because of a violent proc, right? But normally, if you are building your offensive team correctly on offense, you're going to be taking a lot less violent monsters. You can cleave a lot of things, so you're not going to be getting the procs, right? But on top of that, if you take out the correct offense, you're not going to need the procs. You're going to win without them. So that's why on defense, it seems like there's so many more violent procs on defense, because usually they stand out because they were either really clutch violent proc, or they did in fact just get too many of them, and it cost a loss. So they just stand out so much more, right? Now, number 6, will runes. If you know for a fact that, you know, whatever level of the game you are at, that you're prone to getting outsped, and that's going to be for a lot of defenses, you really want will runes, because you do not want to just get controlled. The opponent is going to bring something. He's already got the advantage of a human player playing against the artificial intelligence, so you don't want to just give him free control to just basically reign free and just destroy your team. So I do suggest will runes on defensive monsters. Obviously there's exceptions. If you've got 100% resist or whatever, if they're on revenge because it works for that comp, or destroy or whatever, then yes, you know, there's certain options. Or if you've got a cleanser that's gonna cleanse, then yeah, maybe you don't need them. But ideally, violent will on your defensive monsters. Now, obviously, if you're running a speed damage team, then probably not violent, right? You're going to be using a lot of swift or whatever fast runes. That should be self-explanatory. Now, this next one, number 7, defense break or attack buff. I believe that all of your defenses ideally should have at least the attack buff, but more importantly, they need a defense break. Well, the reason being is the defense break, guys. I'm going to give you a quick example. Say your opponent brings a Perna, right? Now, you have that fire monster on defense that I mentioned, right? If you have a defense breaker, and that defense breaks the Perna, if your enemy brought a wind unit to tank your fire monster, because there is element neutrality, fire onto fire, chances are that your fire unit, along with the other ones, are going to focus down that target. Basically, if your defense can land the defense break on the opponent, it basically creates this huge target right on their head, and it's going to focus fire that unit, possibly deleting it. Going back to the speed tuning, if you do have a defense breaker, make sure that he moves probably first, so that they can in fact move in succession and wipe that unit out. It will create more wins for your defense. I cannot stress enough the importance of a defense break on your defense. So number 8, pure damage. And what is that? It's basically something that's gonna just do a set amount of damage. For example, the Skogul is the perfect example. His rock is, and also his dark brother, they do a set amount of damage based on their HP. mow long. He's not going to glance against the opposing element. Ciara will not glance. That's pure damage. You can incorporate pure damage into your defenses for sure. Now, number 9. Guys, if you're building a control team, you need a stripper. You need a stripper. There is no point in having 3 control units. For example, let's say you go with Charlotte, Rika, and Brad. All your opponent would need would be just 1 immunity unit, and your comp just went to shit. So make sure that if you are building a control team, you definitely have a stripper with it. And obviously, going back to the speed tuning, make sure your stripper moves first. So number 10, drop your expectations, guys. Obviously, people are smart and they know that they face a lot of these same defenses. They're going to be able to manipulate your defense into hitting what they want. So expect to lose more than it wins, right? So I would say anything that's got a 50% or higher defense win rate, that is definitely a great defense. Anything below, I would say 35%, maybe you want to switch it. You do want your defense winning at least 1 out of every 3 times, I would say. And then if you get those defenses that are winning 70% of the time, congratulations, you have made an amazing defense. I personally have about 2 that win that much. And one of them is my Ciara Martina Shina, and that's because it basically got everything. It's got the speed, it's got the element of surprise, it's got the triple element, it's got the defense breaks, it's got the control. But basically, the element of surprise, as a lot of people expect them to be unviolent, but mine are swift, extremely fast. So they gamble, they get outsped, and they lose, which is awesome for me. But that one's got close to a 70% win rate, which is very good. But obviously, don't expect all your defenses to perform like that. Just drop your expectations a bit. But also, if you see one that's just really struggling, that's well under 20%, maybe make some switches. Alright guys, that's going to be it. I hope this helped you guys. Let me know in the comment section below what are some of your best Siege defenses, and also what level of competition are you using these Siege defenses in. Thank you guys so much for watching. So these are your 10 tips and tricks, I guess, to building your Siege defenses. If you didn't know, now you know. You know.